Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to The Bunker. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from a viewer named Neve. Let's hear what Neve has to say.
Hi, Lloyd. My name's Neve. I have a question about privacy in the organization, and more specifically, I'm wondering about what is done with data that is kept on members who faded quite a while ago. A couple of years ago, GDPR has come into effect, which is quite strict, but I'm quite happy with that because I value my privacy. And I was wondering, since I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness and I faded more than 10 years ago, I'm really wondering what would have happened to all of the old data that has been kept on me, and what generally speaking is the type of data that they would keep on a person like me. So basically, I was born into the religion. I got baptized when I was 20, and I started fading, I guess, when I was 23. And completely stopped going from the time I was 24. I'm 34 now, so they won't have any new data on me for the past 10 years. But at the time of my fading, what would they have had on me? And what would happen to that data afterwards? Because with the GDPR, like, you have to keep it. You can keep data on people for a specific amount of time, and you have to do data minimization. But a lot of those things are more aimed at the data that you can keep on people that you come into contact with during, for example, door-to-door preaching. But how does that work? Do you know how this works for the members, and especially for the inactive ones? Because I'm really curious about the kind of data that they have on me. I would like to know what that data is, and I think under the GDPR, you also have the right to ask for it and to see all of that data, and you have the right to ask to have it destroyed. And yeah, that would then also give me this loophole to still be, faded, inactive, and get around the whole shunning thing. Not that it matters, because I still see all of the people that I want to see, who have also faded themselves. And the people who are still in have done this preemptive shunning thing anyway. So there's that. This last bit was just a little bit rambly, so feel free to cut it short if you want to. If you want to play this message in a YouTube video. But yeah, I'm really curious about this. I asked a data protection officer of the Dutch branch of the organization, and they were quite evasive. So I I don't really know what to do. I would, really appreciate if you had some thoughts on this, or if you could point me in the right direction for information. Thanks.
My absolute pleasure, Neve. Thank you so much for your message, which is very relevant and very important to think about, hence why I'm addressing it. Hopefully, what I have to say to you will be relevant and helpful to others as well. So GDPR applies to European countries. However, it's not quite as simple as that, because if you have an outside country, let's say the United States, keeping records on European citizens, then they too, as far as I'm aware, need to be mindful of GDPR regulations. When I say European citizens, I'm aware that we're obviously now post-Brexit, so I'm not completely sure of how GDPR changes or doesn't change post-Brexit, but I would just assume that Britain still comes under GDPR, or there will be a very similar arrangement in place. In any case, if you would like information, if you're watching this voicemail and you would like information on what your rights are under GDPR, especially if you are a European citizen or if you live on the continent of Europe, the thing you need to do is go on Google and just type in Data Commissioner and then your country. I detected an Irish accent, but you said something about congregations, Dutch congregations, in other words, congregations in the Netherlands. So I'm slightly uncertain as to the geography of where the data is that you're concerned about. In any case, if you're in Ireland, the address is dataprotection, all one word, .ie. If you're in the UK, it's ico.org.uk. Just send them a message or give them a call and express your concerns and take their advice, and they will talk you through how to contact the local branch and retrieve any data that is yours, that belongs to you. Now, in terms of what data the organization will hold, Neve, in your situation, you describe being active in the organization between the ages of 20 and 24. Actually, I think you might have said that you were baptized age 20, so you were probably active in the congregation for a while before that. In any case, we're talking, let's say, 4 or 5 years worth of activity in a congregation. The extent of record keeping will really depend on how involved you were in the congregation. That's the simplest way of saying it. So if you were just a publisher, if you were just handing in your report every month to say, this is how many hours I did, this is how many magazines I placed, this is how many Bible studies I conducted, and you are handing in that information or texting it through to your service overseer, that's data that's being kept against your name, and it usually gets compiled on a publisher record card that witnesses are supposed to have access to on, I'm going to say, like a yearly basis. The way it used to work is that there would be a visit to a certain group. I'm sure they do things differently now, but there would be a visit to a certain field service group, and everyone would get to see their publisher record cards, and they would be able to see how many hours they'd been reporting over the last year or so. So that's a record in hard copy form that will now be, I think it's safe to say, digitized, so that the information is being sent through digitally to the organization. And they have now what's called a publisher ID system, where if you are a Jehovah's Witness, your records will be kept digitally unless you opt out of it. But that's the situation now. It wasn't the situation 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I think it would have been a combination of your publisher record forms being kept manually and the numbers being sent through or emailed through or telephoned through to the branch on like a monthly basis. Whether these numbers were actually kept next to your name 10 years ago, I don't know for sure. But basically, we're talking the numbers that you were reporting on a monthly basis. That's data that would have at least been kept at a congregation level and to some degree at a branch level. The only other time they're going to have really significant data is if either there's judicial action where you are involved in a judicial committee, in which case there will be an S77 form if you get disfellowshipped or disassociated, and that will have a lot of potentially very private, intimate data on it, depending on what it was that they were pursuing you for. If they merely reproved you, then there would have been notes of some kind that would probably have been kept in the congregation safe. So there's still a paper trail, either at the congregation or at the branch or both, because the S77 forms automatically go through to the branch. The only other situation that readily springs to mind in terms of data being kept on you as an individual, and again, we're talking about like a 5-year period, is if you apply for something. Have you applied to become an auxiliary pioneer? Have you applied to become a regular pioneer? Have you applied to do the public metropolitan witnessing, which has all sorts of weird grading, where they grade you on your stamina and all sorts of things like that? Again, quite personal data. Have you applied to be a delegate at an international convention in that 5-year period? If so, there's almost certainly going to be some records kept either at a congregation level or at branch level, or perhaps both. How the organization splits those records and to what degree the congregation has records that the branch doesn't have, or the branch has records that the congregation doesn't have, I can't give you the ins and outs of all that, I'm afraid, because I guess you'd have to work on the service department or be an elder in that congregation who was locking away the records to know exactly what was being kept. But bottom line, if you weren't involved in any judicial action, and if you didn't apply for anything significant in that 5-year period, if you were just turning in your time every month, I don't think that there would be significant records kept on you, either at the congregation, in the Kingdom Hall, in the safe, or at the branch office. I think that the data privacy issue becomes much more of a concern if you were involved in some kind of judicial action, or if you applied for something where your character was graded, such as applying to work in Bethel, or applying to be a delegate at an international convention, or applying to do the metropolitan witnessing. In all of those application processes, your personality and morals and character get assessed by the elders, and what they have to say could be of a deeply personal nature that you might not feel comfortable them having that sort of information on you. And you may feel perfectly entitled, and rightly so, to having them delete that information and or send you a copy of what it is that they were holding on you. But again, the people to advise you on this, because I'm not a data privacy or GDPR expert by any stretch of the imagination, I just know a little bit about the record-keeping practices of the organization. The thing to do is contact your data commissioner, and if you suspect that there is anything that they could have been keeping records on regarding you and regarding your character or morals or judicial history, the thing to do is send through a GDPR request. Again, relevant if you are a European citizen and your local data commissioner or the data commissioner in the country where you think the records are being kept, they're the ones to contact, and they will walk you through this process. And you should absolutely pursue this process if you suspect that there are any of those records that I've described being kept on you. So I hope that information has been helpful. By the way, if you're listening to this and you happen to be, let's say, a former elder or a former Bethelite, and you know a bit about the records and what sort of records are kept, or if you know more than I do about GDPR, again, I'm no expert, drop your comments below. Let's make this a communal enterprise where we sort out this whole issue of data privacy as it relates to Jehovah's Witnesses. If you would like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is scurry on over to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you do not want me to play your voicemail publicly on my channel in front of tens of thousands of subscribers. Yes, here on the Lloyd Evans channel, we take privacy very seriously, even if my former religion doesn't. But that's all I have to say. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Lloyd Evans channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching.